Landon Drew scrubbed the marble counter with the kind of focus that came from desperation, not pride. He glanced at the gold-trimmed clock on the wall. Almost 5. He had 30 minutes before he had to pick up his daughter Olivia from school, and this suite was the last on his list. The penthouse. Of course it had to be the penthouse. He adjusted his maintenance shirt, the sleeves rolled up past his forearms, and pushed the cart through the double doors. The suite hit him like a punch to the gut. Floor-to-ceiling windows bathed the space in sunlight, looking out over Manhattan's skyline. A crystal chandelier hung above a velvet sectional, and the scent of something expensive, maybe vanilla and peonies, hung in the air. He didn't know who stayed here, but she had taste and money. "Let's not screw this up," he muttered to himself, grabbing the supplies. He started with the counter, moved to the bathroom, and was halfway through vacuuming the rug when he heard the door click. Crap. He froze upright, vacuum still humming. A woman stepped in, phone in hand, heels clicking against the marble. She was talking fast, voice sharp but smooth, like she was used to being listened to. "No, I said move the Tokyo call to 9 and tell Marcus. I want the numbers before I land in London." She paused at the sight of him, blinked once, then ended the call without another word. Landon lowered the vacuum. "Sorry," he said quickly. "Didn't know anyone was back yet. I can finish later." She waved her hand. "No, it's fine." Her eyes roamed over him, his worn shirt, the faded name tag, the calloused hands. She didn't recognize him, not that she would. He didn't recognize her either, not yet. She looked expensive. Hair pulled back into a sleek twist, blazer sharp enough to cut glass, and eyes the color of cold brew, intense and dark. "I'm Landon. I clean the suites," he added awkwardly. Her lips tugged into the faintest smile. "Lena Zeller." He nodded. "Nice to meet you, Miss Zeller." "Lena's fine." She walked across the room, heels echoing, and dropped her bag on the counter. He tried not to stare. She moved like she owned the place. Because she did. Not just the suite, the entire building. But Landon didn't know that. He picked up the vacuum again. "I'll just finish and be out of your way." "You have a daughter, right?" He froze. Yeah, Olivia, she's 6. She tilted her head. "I saw you in the lobby once. You were rushing, holding her lunchbox like it was a football." He laughed under his breath. "That sounds about right." "She's cute, big curly hair and a unicorn backpack." He smiled. "Yeah, that's my girl." There was a pause. He expected her to nod and move on. Instead, she walked to the bar cart, poured herself a glass of water, and leaned against the counter like she had nowhere else to be. "You always this thorough?" she asked. Landon looked up. "What do you mean?" "Most hotel staff don't vacuum under the couch." He shrugged. "I need the hours. They pay more if we do a full clean." She didn't say anything for a second. Then, "And you're doing all this alone?" "Just me and Liv. Her mom left when she was 3. Couldn't handle the diapers or the bills." Lena's expression softened. "That's a lot." He didn't like pity, but her voice wasn't laced with it. She wasn't judging, she was just listening. He nodded. "Yeah, but she's worth it." "I bet she is." Her eyes lingered on his face, longer than necessary. He cleared his throat and unplugged the vacuum. "I should get going, school pickup." She nodded, stepping aside so he could pass. At the door, he turned back. "Thanks for not freaking out about me being here." She lifted a brow. "Should I have?" "Most people in these suites don't really talk to the help." "I'm not most people." He smiled. "Noted." He left, pushing the cart down the hallway, not looking back. But Lena did. She watched the door long after it closed, her fingers still wrapped around the glass. She had meetings to take, emails to send, flights to catch. But all she could think about was the man with the kind eyes and tired smile, who vacuumed under couches and raised his daughter alone. She didn't know why. But she wanted to see him again. And she would. Because Lena Zeller didn't believe in coincidence. She believed in action. And something about Landon Drew made her want to act. Even if he had no idea who she really was. The next time Lena saw Landon, he was standing in the alley behind the hotel, struggling to fold a rust-stained stroller with one hand while balancing a bag of groceries in the other. His daughter was seated on the curb beside him, legs swinging, a red marker in her hand as she drew on a flattened cereal box. "You look like you're negotiating a hostage release," Lena said, stepping around a stack of broken-down cardboard. Landon glanced up startled. "Yeah, well, the stroller's winning." She crouched beside Olivia. "What are you working on?" The little girl held up the box with a wide grin. "It's my rocket ship. I'm going to Saturn." "Ambitious," Lena said. "Most people start with the moon." "I've already been there," Olivia replied, matter of fact. Lena laughed, looking back at Landon. "She always this confident." "She was born that way," he said, finally collapsing the stroller with a grunt. "Her preschool teacher says she's a force of nature." "You say that like it's a bad thing." "It's not, just means, can never win an argument in my own kitchen." Lena straightened, brushing sidewalk dust from her coat. "You take her to work with you." "Only when my sister's in class. She's in nursing school and watches Liv when she can." "You don't have anyone else?" He shook his head. "No family nearby, just us." Lena looked at the grocery bag. "You're carrying pasta, canned soup, and off-brand cereal. That's not dinner, it's survival." "I make a mean spaghetti," he said. "You'd be surprised." "You cook?" she asked. "Every night. Liv's allergic to peanuts, so I can't risk takeout." Lena's expression shifted, something unreadable passing through her eyes. "She's lucky to have you," she said finally. He looked at her then, really looked. "Why are you here? You don't seem like the type to hang out behind dumpsters." "I'm not," she said, "but I was heading to my car and saw you, thought I'd say hi." "Right," he said, not buying it. She stepped closer, her heels silent on the concrete. "You don't trust people easily." "I trust people fine. I just don't usually find them showing up where they don't belong." "Maybe it belong more places than you think." He didn't answer, watching her too carefully. She glanced at Olivia again. "If you're free tomorrow, I want to take you both to lunch." His brows rose. "Why?" "Because your daughter deserves to eat something that doesn't come from a can. And because I'd like to talk to you when you're not wrestling a stroller." He hesitated. "I don't know if that's a good idea." "It's not a date," she said quickly. "It's lunch, somewhere with real napkins and no plastic forks." "I don't want your pity." "You're not getting it." He studied her, then nodded once. "If Liv's okay with it, we'll come." The next afternoon, Lena stood by the entrance of a quiet French bistro tucked between a florist and a boutique linen shop. She wore a soft ivory trench over tailored pants and had her hair down this time, loose waves brushing her shoulders. When Landon arrived with Olivia in tow, he paused outside the glass door, clearly second-guessing himself. "You made it," Lena said, stepping forward. "She insisted," Landon said, nodding toward Olivia, who was wearing a sparkly silver headband and holding a small stuffed lion. "Good taste," Lena said. "Come on, they have truffle fries." Inside, the hostess barely glanced at Lena before ushering them to a private table near the window. The server brought menus printed on thick cream paper and poured water from a bottle with a label neither Landon nor Olivia could pronounce. Lena smiled at Olivia. You can order anything you want. Even dessert first. Lena looked at the server. 3 chocolate soufflés to start. Landon raised an eyebrow. Now you've done it. I don't believe in rules that get in the way of happiness, Lena said, unfolding her napkin. As they ate, the conversation drifted from dinosaurs to Olivia's favorite books, to Landon's terrible attempt at assembling a bookshelf last weekend. You know, Lena said over coffee, you should think about doing something beyond the hotel. I've got bills and a kid. I don't have time to chase dreams. I'm not talking about dreams. I'm talking about skills. You're smart, good with people. Have you ever thought about managing? He leaned back. What do you even do? Consulting, she lied smoothly. So you tell people how to do their jobs. Only when they're doing them badly. Olivia tugged Lena's sleeve. Can you come to career day at school? Lena laughed. What would I say? Tell them you're a boss lady. Lena looked at Landon. She really is a force. He nodded, smiling despite himself. As they left the restaurant, Lena handed something to Olivia, a small envelope tied with a red ribbon. What's this? Landon asked. A little gift for her art. Olivia opened it and pulled out a small set of watercolor brushes and a note that read, To Saturn and Beyond. Thank you, Olivia whispered, hugging it to her chest. Landon met Lena's gaze. You didn't have to. I wanted to. He looked like he wanted to argue, but didn't. Instead, he said, see you around. Lena shook her head. You'll see me sooner than that. And she walked away, heels tapping against the pavement, leaving the soft scent of jasmine in the air and a man who didn't yet realize his life had already started changing. Lena stood at the edge of the rooftop garden, her gaze fixed on the soft glow of Manhattan's skyline. The air carried the faint scent of rosemary and wet stone from the planters around her, and the city lights shimmered like a net of gold thrown across the night. She didn't usually attend the hotel's donor events. Those were for board members and legacy investors desperate for exposure, but tonight was different. She'd seen Landon's name on the guest list. Not as a cleaner, as a nominee for an internal promotion. She hadn't made the decision, that would have been too obvious, but she'd made sure the right people noticed him after he started managing the weekend staff schedule when a supervisor called out sick. He hadn't asked. He'd just done it, and done it well. Didn't expect to see you here, came a voice from behind her. She turned. Landon stood in a crisp button-down tucked into dark slacks, a program folded in his hand. His hair was still damp at the edges, like he'd rushed to get ready. You clean up well, she said. I borrowed a belt from the front desk guy. Mine broke this morning. I'll buy him a new one. He gave her an amused look. You sponsoring hotel belts now? Only for men who look like they're about to be promoted. His expression shifted, cautious. I didn't tell you about that. You didn't have to, she said. People talk. I listen. He stepped closer, folding his arms. Why are you really here, Lena? She met his gaze. You're interesting. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The noise of the event carried over from the terrace glasses clinking, laughter in bursts, the occasional flash of a camera. You know, he said, looking out over the city, I used to dream about living in a place like this. She tilted her head. What happened? I stopped dreaming, he said quietly, started surviving instead. Lena stepped forward. You can do both. It doesn't have to be one or the other. He looked at her like he wanted to believe that. Where's Olivia tonight? With my sister. She's letting her paint her bedroom wall. I'll owe her for the rest of my life. Lena smiled. That sounds like a fair trade. He turned to her then, more serious. You never said why you're really interested in me. You could have anyone, a stockbroker, a politician, someone who doesn't vacuum for a living. She leaned in just slightly. They bore me. That's not a reason. I don't need to justify my curiosity. But you will, he said. Eventually, people like you always do. Lena's eyes narrowed. People like me. Rich, untouchable, you live in a different world. You think I haven't earned what I have. I think you've never had to choose between paying rent or buying your kid shoes. Her voice was cool. You don't know anything about what I had to do to get here. Then tell me, he said. She paused, then took a step back. Not here. He frowned. Why not? Because once I tell you, it'll change everything. He studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay, then let's leave this place. And now? He glanced at the crowd. I've shaken enough hands. She didn't answer. She just turned and walked toward the elevator. They ended up on a quiet street in Soho, the restaurant small and unassuming, tucked between a vintage bookstore and a closed art gallery. The host ushered them to a booth in the back without asking for a name. You come here often, Landon said. I own it, Lena replied, sliding into the seat. He gave a low whistle. Of course you do. They ordered. The owner himself brought them a bottle of wine and 2 small plates of grilled peaches with burrata and honey. You said you wanted to know, Lena said after the first sip, so here it is. Landon set down his glass. My father ran off when I was 7, left my mother with 3 kids and a mortgage she couldn't afford. We lost the house, moved in with my grandmother. Started working at 15 cash register at a diner, then weekends at a dry cleaner. Applied to every scholarship I could find, made it out of state by sheer stubbornness and caffeine. He didn't interrupt. I built my first company at 24. It failed, so did the next one, but the third one didn't. I sold it at 29 for more than I ever thought possible. She leaned back, and then I built a bigger one. Landon stared at her. You really did it all yourself. She nodded. No shortcuts, no trust fund, just fury and ambition. He shook his head. You sound like Olivia. Then she's going to be just fine. Silence settled between them again, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Why did you lie about your job? He asked. I didn't lie, I just didn't correct your assumption. Why? Because for once, I wanted someone to see me without the title, without the press releases or the power meetings, just me. He exhaled slowly, and now? Now you know, so what happens next? He looked at her, his expression unreadable. I don't know yet, he said, but I'm still here. She nodded, a strange warmth blooming behind her ribs. Outside, the city kept moving, but around their table, time had slowed. And for the first time in years, Lena Zeller didn't feel like she was running the world. She just felt seen. Lena stood in the middle of her office, the floor-to-ceiling windows behind her fading into early dusk. She rarely paused between meetings. But tonight, her assistant had cleared her schedule at her request for the first time in years. She stared down at the matte black envelope on her desk. Inside was the hotel's annual board gala invitation. She'd never cared to attend before, despite being the majority shareholder. But this year, she had a reason. There was a knock. She turned, "Come in." Her assistant stepped in with a garment bag. "It's ready." Lena nodded, "Thank you." Once the door clicked shut again, she unzipped the bag and studied the deep navy gown inside. Understated elegance. No glitter, no headlines, just enough to make a statement one that wasn't about power. Across town, Landon stood in front of the mirror in his sister's apartment, adjusting a jacket he'd borrowed from one of the hotel managers. It was slightly too long in the sleeves, but it was the best he had. Olivia sat on the couch, her hair in tiny braids, watching a cartoon with a bowl of popcorn in her lap. "You sure you're okay tonight?" he asked his sister, grabbing his keys. She rolled her eyes. "We're painting nails, making pancakes, and watching movies. She's happier here than she is at school." Landon leaned down to whisper in Olivia's ear, "Be good." "I will," she said. "Tell the fancy lady I said hi." He smiled, kissed her forehead, and left. The gala was held in the grand ballroom of the St. James Hotel, chandeliers glimmering like stars above a sea of black tie elegance. Landon had never been inside. He'd buffed the floors outside this very room, but tonight, for the first time, he walked through the doors as a guest. He saw her before she saw him. Lena stood near the stage, speaking with one of the board members, her gown catching the light like silk ink. Her posture was composed, but her eyes kept shifting toward the entrance. When she spotted him, something in her face softened. "You clean up better than I imagined," she said when he reached her. "I had help," he replied. "You look like you own the place." "I do," she said simply. He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and pulled out a small, hand-folded origami lion. "Olivia made this for you, said you should keep it on your desk." Lena took it with both hands, her voice quieter. "Tell her I'll guard it with my life." The lights dimmed, and the hotel's director stepped onto the stage. After brief announcements, he began listing honorees. Landon shifted, ready to fade into the background, but his name rang out over the mic. "For initiative, integrity, and quiet leadership, we're proud to recognize Landon Drew." He froze. Lena leaned in. "Go." He walked slowly to the stage, accepting the plaque with a stunned nod. The applause was real, the respect was real, and as he looked out over the crowd, his eyes found hers. Later, after the music started and the crowd turned to dancing and drinks, he pulled her aside to a quieter corner near the balcony. "I didn't expect that," he said. "You earned it. I didn't think people like you noticed people like me." "I notice what matters," she said. "And besides, you're not invisible, Landon. You've just been underestimated." He looked at her closely. "What are we doing, Lena?" She didn't flinch. "I've been asking myself the same thing, but I know I'm not interested in something casual. I don't have time for distractions, and I'm not looking for someone to impress me. I'm looking for someone who already does." He nodded slowly. "I don't know what this looks like in your world." "Then we'll figure it out in ours," she said. They left the gala before midnight and walked through the city, her heels in her hand, his jacket around her shoulders. The streets were quiet, and when they reached her building, she turned to him. "Come up," she said. He hesitated. "What about Olivia?" "She's safe, and you're not staying. Just want to show you something." He followed her into the elevator, up to the penthouse suite he'd once vacuumed. She walked him to the study, where a framed painting sat on the desk. It was Olivia's rocket ship, now matted and behind glass. "I'm not used to letting people in," she said, "but your daughter changed that, and so did you." He stepped toward her. "Lena, I'm not asking you to change your life. I'm asking if we can build something new together, something that makes room for all of it." He touched her face gently. "I've never seen anyone fight so hard to be seen as powerful, and still have the strength to be kind." She leaned into his touch. "And I've never met anyone who made me want to stop running." "I'm not going anywhere," he said. They kissed, not out of impulse but out of certainty. There was no audience, no power dynamic, just two people who had nothing left to hide. Weeks later, Olivia stood in the middle of a sun-drenched art studio that Lena had renovated in her building's unused rooftop space. Her paintings were clipped to a wire, fluttering in the breeze. Landon stood beside Lena, his arm around her waist, watching their girl explain her newest creation to a confused-looking art critic. She told him it was an abstract representation of emotional gravity, Lena whispered. He laughed. I have no idea what that means. She doesn't either, but it sounds impressive. Lena turned toward him. So do you still think we live in different worlds? He kissed her temple. No, I think we built a better one. They stood side by side, no longer separated by status or circumstance. Just a family born from unexpected moments, hard choices, and the kind of love that didn't care where it started as long as it never ended. The ink was barely dry on the final paperwork when Landon stepped out onto the terrace of the new property, the Hudson breeze tugging at his sleeves. It had taken months of meetings, negotiations, and late nights, but it was done. Zeller Holdings had officially acquired the run-down boutique hotel on the Upper West Side, a gamble by most standards, but one Lena had called a legacy investment. He didn't just get promoted. He was now the director of the entire renovation, with full creative control. Lena joined him, tucking a folder under her arm. They approved the revised budget, she said. You'll have full discretion over how to allocate the first phase. Landon turned to her, eyes narrowed. You know, you just handed me a ridiculous amount of money and total authority with no oversight. She arched a brow. I trust you. Those are dangerous words. Only if you misuse them. He leaned in, brushing her hair back as he studied her face. How did we get here? You vacuumed under a couch, she said simply. Everything else was inevitable. They walked through the gutted lobby, the sound of distant drilling echoing through the space. Landon paused at the old reception desk, where Olivia's drawing of Saturn had been pinned to a corkboard. She'd insisted on helping decorate the staff office her version of creative direction. He glanced over. You ever think about what this place will look like when it's finished? All the time, she said, but it's not about the marble or the lighting. It's about the people who will walk through the doors. I want this to be a place where someone like you could have walked in 10 years ago and been seen for what they could become. He reached for her hand. Then let's build that. Later that night, they sat curled on the couch in Lena's apartment, a fire flickering low while Olivia painted on the floor nearby with a concentration only children possessed. The television was on but muted, the city outside humming with distant energy. Lena tucked her feet beneath her and rested her head on Landon's shoulder. My general counsel asked if I wanted to formalize our partnership agreement. He looked down at her. You mean, you and me? She laughed softly. No, the hotel, but now that you mention it. He grinned. What would that even look like? A prenup that includes paint swatches and a clause about stuffed animals on the board. Don't tempt me. Olivia crawled up between them, holding a piece of paper. Can we frame this? Lena took it carefully. It was a drawing of the three of them standing beneath a sign that read home. She blinked twice, then kissed the top of Olivia's head. We'll put it somewhere important. The next morning, Landon stepped into the community center where Olivia had been invited to speak about her art. The room was filled with other kids, paint smudged on their hands, their laughter loud and bright. He spotted Lena across the room, already deep in conversation with one of the volunteers, sleeves rolled up, clipboard in hand. He waited until the group dispersed before walking over. You're working on a Saturday now. She held his gaze. I'm not working, I'm investing. He tilted his head. In what? In people who remind me of you. He took her hand and led her to the back of the room, away from the noise. I've been thinking about something. Dangerous territory. I want to ask you something, he said, but don't want it to be in front of a crowd or over dinner or in a penthouse. She blinked, okay. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small gold ring, simple, elegant, no diamonds. Just a smooth band etched with a tiny, hand-drawn lion on the inside. Her breath caught. "It's not flashy," he said, "but it's us. Quiet, solid, unexpected." She looked up at him, eyes glassy. "Are you asking?" "I'm saying I want this, all of it. The late nights, the paint-stained Saturdays, the budget meetings, the tantrums, the wins. You, Olivia. A life that doesn't look like anyone else's, but feels exactly right." She didn't hesitate. Yes. They didn't make a grand announcement. There was no press release, no media coverage. Just a quiet ceremony in the rooftop garden of the hotel they were rebuilding, sunlight pouring down through linen canopies, Olivia tossing handfuls of wildflowers instead of petals. Landon wore a navy suit that fit properly this time. Lena wore a dress with pockets. They said their vows with only their closest friends and Olivia watching, and when Lena promised to build with him not just businesses, but a life, there wasn't a dry eye in the garden. Afterward, they danced barefoot on the roof, the city stretching around them in every direction. Lena whispered against his neck, "I didn't think I'd ever want this." He pulled her closer. "It's not about wanting, it's about knowing." Years later, Olivia would tell her friends that her parents met because her dad vacuumed too thoroughly and her mom couldn't stop interfering. She'd roll her eyes, but she'd smile when she said it. Because what they built wasn't just a business or a love story. It was a home made of late nights, hard choices, and the kind of love that didn't just survive but transformed. And it lasted because it was real. Because it was theirs.